How do the best players in the world practice? Today we're at Lake Nona with DP World Tour winner Chris Paisley to find out.
Boy, is he swinging nicely. But that's delightful. The champion is Chris Paisley, 31-year-old Englishman, a winner on the European Tour.
So on a typical day, you're going to practice your short game.
Yep.
What would that look like? Do you have specific drills you do for technique, or are you a lot more working on feel?
Yeah, it's mainly feel. I mean, I like to make the technique comes first for me. So luckily I've done enough working it over the years where my strike's usually really good. But if it's not feeling quite right on a given day, I've got a few just feelings that I kind of work through, and that generally gets my strike really good. So just hitting off really tight turf helps. You have to have a good technique, and my one tendency would be just to get a bit kind of that way into the ball, so then I catch it a bit clunky, essentially. So that's kind of one thing I think about, is just making sure I really turn through it, and just trying to make that noise, essentially, where to me it feels like I'm using the back of the bounce and not digging at all. And I basically just kind of take a lot of practice swings where I'm trying to hit the ground quite hard but not make a divot, just kind of brushing the grass like that. And then I'll even sometimes chip off the green to make it really difficult. and that just gets my strike really good. So as long as I'm happy with that, then I just do, at the minute I'm doing the short game handicap thing that I think you helped Nico come up with.
Okay.
So basically I've got an app on my phone that's got, I have 3 random wheels that you press it and it spins. So there's one for lie, where I've got perfect lie, good, average, bad, very bad, and buried. And then I press the button and it gives me whatever lie. And then there's one for distance. So it's very long, long, medium, short, very short. And then the last one's type of shot. So there's bunker, flop, chip and run, pitch, and chip. So I do all 3 of those and it'll give me a certain shot. I'll go around the chip and green and find that shot. And then I think if I get it within 5 feet, it's a birdie. 9 feet's par, 13 is bogey. Within 18 is double bogey, and outside of that's triple bogey.
Pretty free will if you hit a bad shot.
yeah, if you get the very long buried bunker shot, it's you're pretty much guaranteed triple bogey. So
but I think it's a good one for people to do, because so often people come hit a few chips off a perfect lie to a middle pin.
Yeah.
And think, oh, I practiced really great there. But actually the variety is such an important thing.
Exactly, yeah, because you never know what you're going to get on the course, do you? And I've been guilty of that. I love hitting flop shots, so I'll spend 20 minutes just hitting flop shots, and then in reality hit one of those a tournament. So what this has done for me is I'm definitely hitting shots that I would not normally practice, like the long buried bunker shot. I mean, you do get that.
Yeah.
If you're going for a par 5, it plugs in the face of the trap, and you got a 30-yard shot, and just that variety of lies and shots is really important, and that's how you build up almost a database of different shots. You figure out different ways to play out certain lies. So once you've got the basic technique of being able to hit a chip well most of the time, then it's about developing all those little different shots and feels and stuff.
So if you ended up in the rough here, what would you do different from that technique?
I mean, there's so many little variations. In Florida, you've kind of got this rough where it sits down, not too bad. The rough's not too thick, but it kind of sinks down a little bit. So I would almost, depending on what hole I'm playing, I'd almost see that like a bit of a bunker shot, because you can't make clean contact on the ball. There's grass behind the ball here, so I know that I'm not going to get clean contact. So I just hit it a bit harder and accelerate a bit more. It's about developing your understanding of what the different lies do. So this one, I know there's grass between the ball and the club. I just need to open the face and be quite aggressive with it and just act like it's a bunker shot.
Not bad.
Yeah. A good trick I found, if this was into the grain, I try and play a toe up shot, where that essentially reduces the amount of kind of club that is going through the grass. So when it's into the grain and you kind of putting the whole club going through the grass, it really snags. So I would almost try and lift the handle up, kind of play it almost off the toe, and duff it like that. But
that's what I like about short game. You can be really creative. Let's say we're going to the middle pin.
Yeah.
What do you think for the average golfer is the best thing to be doing?
I think it's got to be taking a bit less loft. I strike the ball really well with my chipping, but I would just feel more comfortable using maybe a gap wedge or a pitching wedge, or even a 56, it just makes the shot easier. Like when you're with the lob wedge, you're making a bigger swing. And if your strike's out at all, you know, if you catch it a bit clean, it scoots by, you could duff it quite easily. So it looks cool and when you pull it off, but it's all about putting the percentages in your favor. So like I say, I'm confident with my strike, but I know there's a slightly higher chance of misstriking the lob wedge than there is a gap wedge. So why risk it? You know, there are some people that have the theory of if you use the same club for every shot, then you get really good at using that club. But I don't kind of subscribe to that. I just think make the shot as easy as possible.
I think probably like getting good with one club's like a good place to start, and then you can expand from there.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I've tried to approach it. Like my coach over the years has shown me all these different shots, and I remember at first thinking, like, why do I need that? You know, why don't I just hit a basic shot all the time? But that's the idea. You kind of build up all these shots over a long period of time, and then eventually they become easy. And I don't really need to think about it now. Like when I see a pin and a lie, I just kind of know it's that shot, and I just kind of pull that file almost, and then I just kind of hit it. And
so when you were in South Africa, I remember on one of the last few holes you had like a ridiculously hard bunker shot, straight downhill, like water long, and you had to play like this low running shot.
Yeah.
Can you give us a demo on?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So with this, are you setting up in like the exact same way as another bunker shot, or some slight tweaks? Very
similar. Yeah. So like for a normal bunker shot, I actually kind of have my feet a little bit closed. I just kind of find that helps me kind of turn and release the club head. But normal bunker shot, obviously face a bit open, kind of weight left, ball forward, and then I'm just thinking about kind of getting that nice slap noise on the sand, you know, using the back of the bounce, being quite aggressive through it. And then obviously for the higher ones, you're kind of doing a bit more speed, more open face. But for this shot, obviously the idea is to get it running. And yeah, it's a similar thing, kind of ball forward, weight forward, got the face a fraction open just to present a bit more bounce, because the one error you don't want to make on this shot is to kind of dig, because you'll just kind of fat it in front of you. So all I'm thinking of is just making quite a short swing, but kind of throwing quite a bit of right hand on it, just so that it kind of goes through the sand nicely. It's not getting stuck like that. And then I'm just letting the lack of loft just send the ball out nice and low.
Nice.
Like it's just so much easier to hit it that distance, whereas I just know for a fact if I had a lob wedge there, I would leave it short like 90% of the time. And obviously I've got some skill, but by playing the shot that way, I gave myself a way better chance of pulling it off. Like, you know, in that situation when I was nervous, if I'd had a lob wedge in my hand trying to hit the high one, it's just a way less chance that I would have pulled it. It would look cooler if I'd pulled it off, but I just would have had way less chance. And I think that's what the great short game players do. They make the right decision.
Yeah.
And generally when I don't get up and down, it's generally not because I've misplayed the shot so much. It's more I've chosen the wrong shot. Yeah, like in this situation, it's uphill into the grain, quite a long way. And it's just really hard to get a lob wedge there. And by using this club, I've moved my kind of miss closer to the hole, essentially. It's like even that was not a great strike. It was a bit heavy, but the ball came out.
It's so easy to get a good result, like relative to the strike, isn't it?
That was maybe a 6 or a 7 out of 10 kind of shot, but it's finished 6-7 feet away. And if I'd had a 6 out of 10 with a lob wedge, I would have been 15-20 feet. So
I would say this is the shot that gives most amateurs like a nervous breakdown.
Yeah, the risk factor's a bit higher on the high shot. Yeah, so basically all I do, if my standard bunker shot is kind of face about there, you know, weight left, ball forward, you know, with that kind of swing, the higher and softer and more spin I want, I kind of move everything a bit to the left, face more open, and then I basically just try and open the face as much as possible on the way back, and then really throw my right hand at it. So I've got loads of loft, loads of speed from the right hand, and then the club's kind of coming into the sand, not diggy at all. If you get any sort of lean on it, you can either fat it or thin it. You're basically looking to kind of not take that much sand, essentially just I'll spend a lot of time practicing just trying to make that nice noise that you get where you're using feels like I'm using the back of the bounce. And then it's just trusting the physics after that.
I like that feeling of like whipping the right hand under, because a lot of people get stuck on kind of almost trying to add loft instead of actually like hitting down the ball.
Yeah, exactly. So most of my short game thoughts are how aggressively can I hit down on it, but present the bounce. so that I'm kind of being aggressive into the ground, but not diggy. So like when I'm chipping off the green, I feel like I can really hit it hard and like really go down on it, but because I'm presenting the bounce correctly, it doesn't dig and it just kind of brushes the ground nicely. And it's a similar thing with this. Like the loft comes from obviously the setup, having the face wide open, opening it up, and then kind of feeling like, to me, it feels like I'm doing that. So there's just loads of loft there. So I don't need to do it with the body. It's when people start, they either get worried about the strike and then lean on it, and then they end up thinning out or fattening it, or they try and scoop it, and then you essentially move the bottom of your arc back and you hit behind it and duff it. So it's about getting the kind of setup correct and the ideas in your head correct, and then just trusting that if you do that, the club will go through the sand correctly and the ball will pop out nicely. So there's a lot of trust involved. So I've got the face wide open. I'm feeling like I just open the face loads and then really throw the right hand at it.
Nice. I'm actually too short to see where that's gone.
Yeah, it's 6 feet, 5 feet.
So if you're trying to control distance with this, how would you do that? Are you doing it through like speed, swing length, loft you're adding?
Depends, yeah, all of the above, I suppose. So like if I needed to hit it further with the same amount of spin, I would just hit it harder. If I wanted it a bit lower, I'd have a slightly squarer face. If I wanted it to run, I'd kind of play more of the shot that we did over there. So there's loads of different ways to do it. Main ones are how open's the face, how hard am I hitting it, and what club do I play it with, and the lie.
So try one to a bit further back pin so I can see you.
This one on the right here.
Yeah. Have got a slightly longer one.
Yeah, so this still needs a little bit of spin because it's kind of fast and a bit downhill. So there'll be a bit of speed, but it doesn't need to be a really high one. So this is more of a kind of normal bunker shot for me. So the face is still quite a bit open. I'm still going to kind of throw my right hand at it, but it doesn't need to be quite as extreme as the last shot.
Shot.
Yeah.
We move out of the bunker. I think a lot of people struggle when it comes to like those like 30, 40 yard shots where it's like not quite a pitch.
Yeah.
But it's not really a chip.
Yeah.
And they get caught up with not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
So how would you like work on them, and what are you thinking about when you're trying to like hit those shots?
Like for this kind of middle pin, if you're not particularly comfortable in this situation, you could take less loft and maybe hit a pitching wedge where you're actually making it a chip. And you can kind of run it up. Obviously back home, especially during the summer, that's generally always an option. If you need a bit more height and you actually need some like technique to it, then I'm kind of thinking the same things really, like in terms of the strike. So again, what people struggle with is mainly the strike and just trusting the loft on it. So obviously the big errors is here, backing out of it to get some height. Obviously some people kind of try to dig it because they think that guarantees the strike. But all I'm thinking on this kind of shot, where I need a bit of height and a bit of spin, and it's kind of that in-between shot, is just that creating that strike there where I can be quite aggressive with it. Like it feels like I'm kind of hitting down on it, but because I'm not digging it, the club just kind of bounces nicely on the turf. And that's essentially all I'm thinking. I'm obviously trying to hit my spot, but if I strike this well, then I'm fine.
Nice.
Yeah.
So full pitch shots, you have a pretty detailed grid system.
So that was one of the things I learned in college. I got there and I was a pretty good wedge player because I could strike the ball well and stuff, but I didn't really have a system for distances. So they basically got me to build up this clock system. So it's basically a length of swing. So like a 9 to full swing would be where your hand, left arm goes to the 9 o'clock position, and then you swing full, and then there's a 10 o'clock to full, and then you can do 9 to 2. And basically the coach said to me, I want you to get, I think it was 3 numbers a week when I got there. So started off, I just got all my full numbers. And then a few weeks later, I got all my 9 to fulls. And over years, I just built up this big spreadsheet of different numbers, and I would continuously test them and try and add new ones. And to the point where I developed this a bit with Nico, I was using different grips. So I'd have a 10 to 2 with a lob wedge with a strong grip, which would kind of make the ball obviously come out lower with less spin and go a bit further. And all of a sudden, like I'd be on the course, and initially I would have my little chart with me, and I would have a 100-yard shot, and I would have like 5 different ways to hit it 100 yards, with different clubs, different shots. But then I would, if it was a back pin into the wind, I would use my gap wedge with a strong grip and hit it softer so it came in. Or if it was a front pin, I would maybe open my 56 degree up, move it to a 1 o'clock face and hit it hard so it would go higher. So it was quite a long process, but I just gradually built up all these different shots to just give me a reference, rather than just relying purely on feel, which can kind of change day to day. I've got all these kind of shots that can give me lots of different options for hitting into a green. Yeah, so I've got 71 yards. Looking at that, thinking it's up a really steep tier, but quite a small area on top. So I probably need to land something with a bit of spin on top. So my 10-2 lob wedge is a 70-yard shot. It's a bit cold, fraction into the wind, so I probably need to add a little bit to my 10-2 shot. So I can either do that with just adding a bit more speed, or a fraction longer swing, or I could strengthen my grip a bit because it's a bit into the wind, so that might be the way to do it. So it'll still spin quite a lot. I'm gonna try and do my 10-2 lob wedge just with a slightly stronger grip. So that.
Gone to about 6 foot.
Yeah. So another option, if the green was really firm and it was downwind, I could use a 56 and try and skip it up there. I think that's going to be hard to do today because I'm guessing that green's pretty soft. 66 yards, which with the temperature and wind, is probably a 70, 71, 72 shot. So that'll be like a little 9-1, 56 degree.
Nice.
Yeah. So it didn't quite skip up the hill, but hit the number. It's about putting the odds in your favour. So like to a back pin into the wind, if you try and hit a high shot, that's a really hard shot to pitch back. You would almost have to land it back edge, which obviously brings a lot of danger in. And then you've got the element of spin. So even if you landed at pin high, it would probably spin back 20 feet. So by taking less club and hitting it in lower, it's just easier to land it a bit short and skip it back there, and it just gives you a better chance of a bad shot there is with that kind of shot is better than a bad shot with like hitting the full spinny one. Your normal player could just work out his full numbers and then just go really simple, like maybe a shoulder to shoulder and a kind of waist high to waist high, 3 shots with each club. If you've got 3 wedges in your bag, that's 9 different shots, and then you just work in between that. So obviously, say if you waist to waist is 60 yards and your shoulder to shoulder is 80 yards, and you got a 70-yard shot, just go in between the two.
Yeah.
So it just gives you a bit of a frame of reference. You obviously don't need to go crazy with grips and all that, but it just gives you like a nice starting point to then give you an idea, because the amount of times, like when I'm playing with my dad, he'll have 70 yards and he thinks he's hit a great shot and he flies the green by 20, and because he just doesn't have a frame of reference for how hard to hit it.
I think even for most people, just knowing like how far they hit it full.
Yeah, start
because
there. Yeah.
The amount of times people get just the carry distances completely wrong is
Yeah. They once hit a pitching wedge 130 yards downwind when it was firm, so they think they hit the pitching wedge 130 yards, right? Whereas there's a big difference between like your average carry number on a normal day to what people think they carry those clubs. Like in pro-ams, it happens all the time. On a par 3, it'll be like 200 yards into the wind, and I'm like, probably got to hit a good 4-iron here. And the amateur pulls out his 5-iron. You're like, what are you doing? And they'll hit a good shot and come up 30 yards short. And it's so just starting with the full one, and then if you got the time, just develop a few different shots with each club will really help.